I'm down to talk about that stuff.
Word.
That stuff's interesting.
You want to just hop right into it?
Yeah, fuck it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ayoo Chill podcast. Y'all already know the business. Today, I got for you a special guest, one of my co-studio owner slash worker people in Glower. We got the amazing Aaron. Aaron, please take a second or minutes and introduce yourself to the people and let them know who you are and where you're from.
What's up, everyone? My name's Aaron Chaparian. I'm from Midland Park, New Jersey. It's a small town in North Jersey. I'm a songwriter, music producer. I mostly do metal music. I've always done metal. That's my thing. And it's cool coming across Luis's path because he does not do metal at all. So
That is very true.
It's good to be exposed to people who like don't do exactly what you do. It opens your mind. Yeah, but that's what I do. I have a space in Glower Studios. My brand is called Iron Audio. And I do songwriting, music production, recording for mostly metal, but I'm open to, I guess, all genres, but I have found a niche in like pretty extreme metal.
Yeah, dude. And like you were saying before, it's dope always talking to people who are extremely passionate about like especially and good at the area that they're in. You know, like for example, like before I came here, I had been around, obviously if you're a studio head, like, you know, like you're gonna be around metal, you're gonna be around every type of genre, right?
Yes.
But then when you find people who are actually doing it, you know what I mean, releasing stuff consistently, and your discography of stuff that you have out, I don't even know how many songs you have out on.
It's a lot.
It's huge.
So I get hired to write songs for different vocalists and artists, and some of them allow me to put like the instrumental that I created for them out online, and some of them don't. And I have like hundreds of songs on there, but I would say it's like only half the songs I've created for people.
That's crazy.
I just kind of nonstop write music.
That's a good habit and kind of like workflow to get into though.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, actually, why don't we hop into that a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
Because I think out of everybody here in the studio that we have between me and Shane, right? You seem like you have the most consistent workflow out of us.
I would say I'm pretty, I guess, disciplined. I force myself a lot of the time to like stay on that consistent grind.
And how do you did it always start with that consistent grind? Like how did you grow into that system of just consistent
I think
grinding?
one, I love the music that I create. I love the style. So like, it's not so much like me trying to discipline myself in another sector of work. Like I really love what I do. I think that's a big portion of it. But I definitely force myself a lot of the time to write the music that I write. One, because like I do get paid to write it, so it is work. But I think there's an aspect of me becoming good at what I do, like by forcing myself to a certain extent. I've gotten into like a lot of, I guess, personal development, like David Goggins. You know David Goggins?
Yes, David Goggins. He's the Navy SEAL guy,
Yeah,
right?
the dude who runs like hundreds of miles at a time. I feel like after discovering that kind of stuff, I tried to put it towards the work that I do and just like see what happens if I really discipline myself, and I'm able to like create a songwriting business because of it.
You know what? I think that is I hear that and I see that stuff and I've yet to find that consistent like light. I think personally,
It's really difficult.
yeah, for sure, for
Like
sure.
I don't want to do most of the work, but I force myself.
Yeah. I think that and you know what? I think the quality too. Like I think the basics of you put in the work and you get better, right? And especially putting consistent the work. I mean, it's the same way. You didn't mention that you go to the gym as well,
Yeah,
right? And you work out.
that's a big part of it.
And I think that mentality with working out and then also doing this is they correlate so well.
I've always had kind of like a regimented thing going on. Like I like structure. I like, I guess, for lack of better words, like comfort. I get, I guess, irritable when I'm out of my routine. I think this style of work that I do is in line with like kind of my temperament. Like I like routine, which is like it helps me become more disciplined because I like almost enjoy it. Yeah.
And how about when that routine gets kind of like,
I'm a mess, dude.
wow.
I'm irritable. I kind of get snappy with the people around me. You don't see it because like this workplace is like where I kind of thrive, but outside it, I'm a little more, I guess, mentally unstable. But I'm on a journey of like finding ways to become, I guess, more stable when I'm not in a routine. Like I cut out a lot of things. I don't drink. I don't smoke anymore. Like I try to eat healthy. Like those things really affect me, and that's just like me as an individual. I know other people can do all that stuff and like feel okay, but I can't.
You know what? And I'm glad that you bring that up. I think we're getting to an interesting conversation where you mix in work,
Yeah.
passion, and mental health all kind of like
Yeah.
mix into this big thing. And it's very interesting because I've never seen you come into the studio in like a bad mood.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen you.
Usually
like,
I'm like, I love doing this stuff. So like, this is my best mood, I would say. But usually when I'm not doing this stuff, I am more anxious, and I'm pretty obsessed with the work that I do. It's like my life kind of gravitates around it. And if I'm not doing it, I'm okay, but I'm definitely less enthusiastic about the stuff that I'm doing. I'm trying to be better at that. Like, I would say I'm pretty good with it now, but years ago I did not have a good like work-life balance.
what would you say it was before you got to this point?
Like out of college, I felt pretty pressured to like work pretty aggressively. I guess just because I wanted to become successful, and I don't know. I feel like our whole school system, like it kind of confused me. So I like felt pressure to work really hard, really quickly, and I totally burnt myself out. And like I was all work. I would hang out sometimes, but that definitely put me in a place where I wasn't feeling okay. But I've been better with that now, definitely. I've like taken the time and tried to focus on these other areas.
So where do you think in life outside of the studio you struggle the most with?
I would say like existential thoughts, things that people can't figure out, like the deep questions of life. That shit fucking tears away at me.
Is there anything that like that comes up into your mind that like bothers you like immediately?
How are we all here? How am I existing? Like that, really deep,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when I do music, I forget about that stuff. But when I'm not, like, I feel like most of my life is thinking existentially. And it puts me in an anxious place. It's not good.
You know what? I think maybe I have a similar problem in the sense that I just think too much about things.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily just like super existential like thoughts, but like just like regular thoughts, you know what I mean? And I think social media is also like the thing that drags me down so much.
I think that's an area that like there's a lot of pros and cons.
Yeah.
And I think the con is like you definitely overthink things.
Yeah, and I think it's weird because social media is one of those things where it's you get so many people in a room, in this like theoretical room, right? And they could all just spew out whatever they want. And matter of fact, like I before any podcast that I do, I always do like podcast prep. And I like to listen to other podcasts too, to just kind of get me in the mood and like, you know, listen. And earlier I was listening to like kind of Joe Rogan talk about cancel culture.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about, he's like, you should have like a small group of people who like you really look to and be like, hey, am I still me? Or like who you could trust
That's
with your
important.
actions and what you do, you know? And regardless of what the internet says, you got to just kind of just let it go, you know? And but it's weird because it's like little things like that upset me so much still, you know?
I feel like social media is weird because like if you said something like to me, like am I still being myself? You don't have to do that if you put stuff out online. You can just put stuff out. Like there's no nobody saying like that was cringy or that wasn't yourself. People just like put it out, and you don't know who's authentic online. That's where it becomes like you start overthinking.
Right. Right. And that's why I think right now and why I got so attached to the podcast medium is that you can't be fake for more than like 20 minutes, I find.
Yeah.
You know? There's people I've had on the podcast before where especially in my early podcasting days, right? When I put out my like probably like my most embarrassing, cringy conversations, you know. But there was this one podcast that is actually not available anymore, unfortunately. Maybe I'll put it back up one day. I don't know. But I took it off because it was literally just me and two other friends, and we were just basically, for lack of better words, we were just shit talking, you know.
see.
And but it was something that I've always kept true to the podcast is that whenever we talk about stories like that, I always tell people like, don't talk about anybody's names. You know what I mean? So this guy in this conversation, he had been talking about like his experience, like I think he had like sex with a girl or something, and he was just like, he was like, it was trash or whatever. And we were just, you know, we were shit talking whatever, but no names were given or anything. But then I got this like wave of just like hate from the actual girl.
Oh damn.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
They found you online and messaged you
About it. Yeah, and they messaged me, and then they were just like, you're an asshole, you're a dick. And I was like, number one, we did not talk about anybody's names. And I was like, we just put it out there. And I was like, it was a conversation. It was what it was. And it was weird coming back from that, because not only that, I saw them in real life. I actually ran into them at a house party, at a college house party, and like 10 girls like surrounded me, and they just started ripping me.
That
right?
sounds terrifying.
And I was just like, and I told them, I was like, listen, I was like, number one, the internet's a fake place. Oh, I got so sidetracked. Before I continue with that, 20 minutes into that podcast, right, this kid was like so putting up a front, right? And then after those 20 minutes, like he said what he wanted to say. And we didn't ask him to say anything, right? After those 20 minutes, it was just like, it was like, damn, like this is who you really are. And then, so once that came out, you know, and after like the true hymns, like, and not only that, back then we would drink a lot on the podcast. So we were drinking, I think we were drinking like White Claws or whatever.
Yeah, your filter's not there.
You know, so, but it's funny because even like, no matter how drunk I've gotten on the podcast, especially in the early days, like I still look at those podcasts and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty true to my word still. You know what I mean? I'll say some fucked up things like here and there. And I was like, yeah, but you know, you learn from those mistakes and then you correct them in the future. And then future podcasts I've had, and even now, like I look back at it and I'm just like, yeah, I was a little bit of a dickhead, but like, you know, now I kind of learned. It's been like a year and a half since that podcast time period and stuff. But like, you know, like I said, you can't hide who you are. And I think it's a perfect segue into when I saw those girls in person, right? And they all surrounded me. I was just like, yo, end of the day, if you're really that upset about it, I'll take it down. I apologize to them. I was like, I didn't, and I was like, no, and like, you know, I'm not saying if we said their names and we actually exposed them like that, that would be fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in hindsight, I'm just like, I still kind of stick by it where I'm just like, we're telling a story, dude. You can't control someone's story or whatever. But the main girl who talked about it and stuff, she had DM'd me. Oh no, I gave her my number at the party. Because I was like, you have any other problems, you could just directly talk to me. I'm not like somebody who's not willing to have a conversation. She texted me like randomly, like 6 months after like the podcast was up and everything, and she had sent me like this long paragraph and was just like, hey, can you take it down? And I didn't ask her why. I was just like, okay, that's not a problem.
That's nice of you to take it down.
So I just took everything down. I didn't really think about it too much. But like, yeah, I think at the end of the day, you make mistakes online. Like it's those type of thoughts, and that really fuck me up a lot. You know, thinking about that.
Yeah, I even put out some videos in the past of like trying to like put myself out there more in different ways. Like I was doing some, I guess like songwriting tip videos, and I would react to some music production on YouTube, and like years later I would like think about it, be like, I feel cringy when I watch this shit. Like I know what it's like to like make something and then years later be like, I don't want to like look at it again or stuff like that.
But it's that same thing where I'm just like, I think you need to go through that cringy period.
I think you do,
in order to get to where you want to, right?
I think that's everybody with like their music or their art. Like you listen to stuff you did in the past and you think you can do it better now.
Yeah, for sure.
I've known people who have like literally deleted their music like that I produced for them years ago. Like I recorded them and mixed their stuff, and like the music's gone now because I think they felt maybe cringy about where like how it sounds now or something.
Yeah, Yeah, for the most part, I don't agree too much with taking away stuff, but I
Yes.
get it whenever it comes to like certain business decisions
Hmm.
and certain things where you're just like, oh, okay, like
I noticed some people do this on Instagram. They delete all their posts. Then
mm,
they start from scratch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
What
done that before.
What do you think about that?
Oof, oof. This is a great kind of to what I was saying before. Unless it's for business,
It seems mostly like a business
yeah.
move.
If it's business, I get it. If it's like personal, like reasons where it's like this is giving me bad energy,
Hmm.
like take it off. But for the most part, I want people to see my story of where I've gone
Yeah.
through. And the only things I don't like now personally to put out is I don't like to put too much of my family out there.
Hmm.
I put some pictures up and everything, but I kind of just don't like to involve the people around in my
I'm
life.
kind of the same way.
Yeah, it's weird. I have the most open, closed life, I think, because at the same time, like when I'm home, even this past Thanksgiving a break, I was not on my phone.
Hmm.
I was just like, I don't want to be on the internet.
That's hard to do.
Yeah,
It is like really hard.
you know it's weird. Even though I do this, I kind of find it easy because it's kind of like whenever I'm online, it's like work for me,
Hmm.
and especially when I started this year off with social media. Managing and stuff, like I started realizing like, oh shit, when I'm off the clock, like I don't even want to be by my phone.
Hmm.
Getting to the point where I don't even want to respond to texts,
True.
which gets bad sometimes.
I'm bad with that.
Yeah.
I've gotten worse.
Yeah.
There was a time, I guess years ago, when I was first starting my business, and I felt like I had to answer everybody immediately. And then me running my own business, I have to also do the work, and then kind of be like the customer service aspect of it too. It's like I wear all these different hats, but the text thing, I've gotten like kind of worse with that. Like people will text me and I'll answer a day or two later. I almost feel guilty, but I also don't because like I need to feel good.
Yeah, I
It's weird being attached to the whole world at one time. That's like a new thing with social media, texting. It's like it's weird to be in contact at any second with anybody in the world. And if you don't respond immediately, like I don't think you should feel that bad about it.
I think that is a perfect that's a perfect thing to. How do you feel about like? Do you have your text messages on scene where they could see if you
Yes,
saw?
I think I do.
That's tough for me sometimes.
It
Dude.
holds me accountable.
Ugh.
It's like this person saw it, I have to respond.
Sometimes I have that problem with Instagram DMs. I have that problem with Instagram DMs. I have that problem where I'll open up a DM and I'll be like, I can't respond to this right now, or I don't have the answer. So then I'll go away from it, right? And then I'll have to respond like the next day when I finally have an
Yeah.
answer. And I've had people come at me before online being like, you saw my DM.
Oh, damn.
Now I'm offended.
That calls you out.
And I'm just like, bro. And sometimes I'll be like, dude, it's not that deep. Like you're really getting
I feel
super
like
hurt.
some people understand that other people have stuff going on, and they're the ones that won't put that pressure, especially publicly, like on like a comment. And then there's some people who do the opposite, and they'll pressure you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's an appropriate way to go about it. At least give somebody the benefit of the doubt once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If stuff once you see a pattern, like that's when I probably say like,
I feel like I would at least like nicely message you, be like, hey, I sent this message a few days ago. Not sure if you saw it. Can you get back to me when you can? But some people like are very impatient,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they will do what you just said.
I think this is a perfect segue into knowing. So we talked a little bit about like the beginnings, and having stuff that messes you up in the early stages of your career, right? I feel like that's when we're our most antsy, and I even
Yes.
find myself. I still have that problem where I'm very antsy. I get super excited about things, and I want answers here and there, but that could easily derail into
Yeah.
like being unprofessional,
Definitely.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I think what we're just talking about is a perfect example of it.
I remember, this is not even online, it's in person. I was an intern. I was kind of in that like period of after college intern where like I was trying to like find my way and find a way to, I guess, have a job. And I remember being at the studio that I really wanted to intern at, and I had the cool opportunity of interning there. And I felt like anxious because I wasn't finding my own path. And this recording studio had a drum session with this band that I liked, and I was sitting in on the session and I was watching them set up the mics, and the dudes were paying no attention to me, and why would they? Like, they're working and I'm just an intern, and I felt like almost like really scared at the moment because like they weren't teaching me, and I like didn't know like how to do what I wanted to do yet, and I like was almost like interrupting them like from an anxious place of like almost like things that don't matter so much, like how to position a kick drum mic, like things that aren't big picture stuff, and like I was definitely anxious about it. And yeah, I like when I first got into this stuff, I like definitely felt anxious getting into this stuff.
Yeah, I think maybe part of it might play into a little bit of ego too.
That was definitely
And
ego.
like,
Like I wanted the like I couldn't get the attention off of me. Like I had this like spotlight effect, I guess I would call it. Like I felt so pressured to make it about me for some reason. But I've definitely like that's been almost beaten out of me by society. Like
oh yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, like ego checks happen all the time.
that
Like,
was a big ego
yeah,
check.
I get big ego checks too. But it's so weird because for young artists or even young engineers, or if you're listening to this, like anything you're doing within the music industry, the art industry, like you have to. You're either playing a game or you have to realize the situation for what it is. In the studio, I feel like a lot of the times it's less of playing a game and more of realize what your puzzle piece is in this big picture.
Yes, that's what I had a hard time figuring out when I first got into this stuff, and it goes back to your question about like me feeling more anxious when I first started my business. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's sometimes it's hard to accept where that comes from, especially the people who are doing the best in this industry are usually I don't want to say usually, but at least the people who have tried the hardest, within their respective like areas, getting into at least where they get into. At least this is what I realize. At least my story is, and what I see a lot of other stories is for a lot of other like musicians that come into here. Because at least William Patterson was very much you're a musician first, and then everything else you get into, like
I see. Yeah.
you become an engineer. And for me, like I had a bit of an ego coming into stuff. Well, a little bit different for me in my personal story for sound engineering, because I didn't know anything about sound engineering, so I had no ego because I was scared all the time. I was really scared about plugging in mics, and I was terrified all the
I
time.
think that's the thing with me with that story I just told about like me feeling anxious and them not teaching me. I was doing music recording for like years before that, and these dudes did it at a way higher level. So I almost had an ego, like I know this stuff, but
Yeah.
but I also don't. At the same time, I was in this weird period of like, come on, I can handle it if you tell me, because I know. But they weren't like showing me. It was interesting.
Yeah, and it's weird too because we don't have to get too into it. I mean, but I know the recording industry, kind of like old school versus like new school, like teachers, very different. Very
Yeah.
different. Because old school, I mean, there was a lot of like, for lack of better words, I guess you could call it like hazing, when it comes to getting a bigger studio position.
I could see that. I think Shane used the good word of gatekeeping.
Yes,
Yeah.
gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Where it's like they'll just have you doing bullshit. Really, I don't know how else other to put it.
There is like a hierarchy thing going on with those studios and those people.
Yeah,
I understand though. They have all this like, if it's an older studio, they use a lot of analog gear, and they don't really trust anybody just using that stuff. So it makes sense to like give someone else tasks that are just kind of mindless.
yeah, it's weird because I've always come through a place where like I want to go somewhere and work somewhere, but also gain something from the time I'm committing.
Yeah.
Not kind of like I don't know. I don't necessarily agree all the time where you're working at a place and the risk that you're taking is spending all this time and then getting rewarded for the time, rather than at least getting kind of little milestones in between,
I think some people who work at a really high level, they don't care.
Yeah.
They're like, sure, if you want to like watch me work for free, you can do that. I don't really care what happens to you though. I think there are some people who are like that, but some people like will give you these opportunities in between, and they're aware of like you're spending your time to work for me for free.
Yeah.
But some people don't do that, and it's hard to like navigate as somebody who's just like leaving college. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. I think any advice that I would have in this area that we're talking about for artists or sound engineers or anybody in the artist industry really realize where you plug it into their system, and make sure that you're making yourself as important as possible. You know, and in what they're doing, even if they have you setting up like mics for a drum, try not to get in anybody's way. You know what I mean? Just set up your mic thing, and then ask when you have the opportunity. Just be like, hey, like, did I do this right? You know, when there's a chance, because it's hard to find those moments to breathe. You know, and
It is, and some guys who are doing this for a living and like trying to make a name for themselves, they won't give you that time. They really won't. Some of them. But usually those guys have people who work under them or around them, and those people are usually more willing to give you some of their time.
Word. Have you found yourself in any situations going through this process where you might have like kind of fucked up?
Definitely. I think coming out of college, I kind of blurred the lines between like professionalism and being myself.
That was a hard one for me.
That
too.
was hard for me because like I think with like these people I'm talking about, the people who work at a high level, I had a chance to intern for some of them, and I would maybe try to communicate with them, I guess, almost like I wasn't in a workplace. And some people, you just don't know how they're going to respond, and totally backfired for me. Like I almost felt almost rejected or neglected. Like they didn't really pick up on this, like, I don't want to say bait that I threw out, but like a way to connect with someone. They made it just professional, like almost said things that were like, okay, I'll distance myself from you.
Do you have like an example of it?
I don't want to get into that.
Okay,
I think
cool.
it's almost too specific for the people that I would be talking about.
That's cool.
But I would say if you're somebody going into an internship, I guess approach it from more of a professional place. Like realize these people are in a workplace and not there to like, I guess, hang out. I think my way of trying to connect with these people was the only way that I knew, which was like more personal, less professional. And I kind of learned that in a professional environment as a 22-year-old, maybe the way to do this is to approach it more professionally.
Yeah, you know what's funny enough? I think this is a very common like mistake that people do getting into this, you know, where they make it too personable. And it's funny because even me being me, right? Because I'm very like out there, and now I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm just like, I'm the boss of myself now. I don't give a fuck how, like, you know, I talk.
I feel that way now because I kind of own my own business.
Yes.
But as me trying to like maybe work for another company, I didn't know how to navigate that.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, when my first internship I ever did was with Shane at Architect, right? And it was weird because the sound engineering community coming into it at first, I think from an outside perspective, at least, like it seemed unprofessional to me, but in slight ways. Because like when I went to interview for at Shane's old studio, I came in a button down shirt, tie, dress pants.
Yes.
Everybody else who was waiting there, t-shirt, jeans.
The art community is weird like that. Music, you don't know how to navigate it, and I think that was my problem. I was like, this stuff's fun to work on. Like, why would I act like a business person? But I think it came across the wrong way. Want to hear something funny that I never told anybody?
Please.
As like a 21-year-old, 22-year-old intern, or trying to become an intern, I tried to intern for Architect.
Really?
And Shane, I interviewed with Shane, but they said no. They denied me. And
Why?
I don't think Shane remembers that I went there to interview with him.
No way.
Yes.
Have you talked to him?
Never talked to him.
Yo, he's gonna hear this.
I didn't want to make him uncomfortable. Shane's my dude now. We fucking hang out all the time.
Yeah, dude.
I love working with him. But I really don't think he remembers it.
What a wild, bro. That's
It's funny,
wild.
right?
That's hilarious.
I never wanted to tell him because I didn't want to make him uncomfortable.
Oh, dude.
But
I can't wait till he listens
I know,
to
right?
this.
I feel like now's a good time to say
Yeah,
it.
it's a perfect time to say it, dude.
Yeah, I was like 20 or 21 years old. Like, I think I was going to graduate college the next year, and I was trying to find a place to intern. And I knew about Architect. There was a studio in the area. And they said no.
That's wild.
But now I'm here sharing the space with Shane.
Do you think they said no because of the way the interview went, or like?
I don't know.
No. Damn.
Don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. My interview with Shane was actually pretty funny. I think I've said it on a past podcast, but I feel like I see the thing is I kind of almost had the opposite approach when coming into sound engineering. I think part of it comes from my culture and how I grew up, because my parents always grew me up with being like, wherever you go, whatever you see, good morning, good afternoon, my name is this, you properly introduce yourself.
That's professional.
Wherever.
Yeah.
And that's just what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And it would be funny because, you know, this little Latino boy, two immigrant parents, and I would go to like, you know, I grew up in like Little Falls. So it's like, you know, like you meet a lot of people who are like doing well, and you know, I just go straight to the parents whenever I went into somebody's house and I'd be like, hello, my name is this. I tell them where I live. I tell them like what my parents do, and I'd have a whole conversation.
That's really cool.
With all these adults when I was a kid, instead of talking to the kids. And even most of the time it was weird because I liked hanging out with the adults. I liked sitting in and listening to their conversations.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like this is how I could communicate better. Like this is how I like, you know, could be better when talking to people. So almost when coming into the sound engineering community, even with my professors at school, they didn't want to be called professor. They would want to be called, you know, like for example, one of my professors at Willie P, like his name is Angelo, like I would just be like professor, and he's like, stop calling me professor, call me Angelo. And I'd be like, yo, this goes against everything I was raised with.
Right.
You know, and even my friend's parents, I still have a very hard time with that. One of my friend's parents, I'm not gonna say her name, but she's always just like, don't call me Miss, you know, my last name. That's my mother. You know what I mean? Call me like I don't know, Joyce. And I was like, I can't call you that. That's disrespectful. And she's like, it's not. Like, and so
Right, she said to call her that. It's not.
yeah, so it was weird. And even when I had my first show, like doing like backstage stuff and being, I came in a suit and tie. And they looked at me and they're like, what the fuck is good with you, dude? You're going to be crawling on the floor. You're going to be moving wires and stuff. Like, come dressed appropriately.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought this was appropriate, bro. I
Right.
want to look professional for every... They're like, no one's going to see you.
Right.
You jeans, black shirt next time. That's the attire. You know?
I feel like it's kind of good to be over prepared in that way.
Yeah, you know.
And then you kind of back off as it goes.
For sure. And I realized the more I've gone through this, like, you know, journey, like there's a balance. There's for sure 100% a balance. Because you can't you could show your personality, but you have to feel that time and place. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's that patience of building that relationship, because first you have to show that you're capable of doing what they ask of you. You know what I mean? And then if you want to show a little bit of yourself, I wouldn't say don't show yourself, like don't be who you are, but at the same time, you know, like, you know, it seems so easy to just like fuck up nowadays.
I feel like creating a connection with people and getting them to open up is a process. And I think as a 22-year-old intern, I tried to like take the short route and like just try to be myself immediately and almost expect the people that I looked up to in these studio situations to connect with me. And they're like, from their perspective, they don't know me at all, and they don't trust me because like they just met me. So it makes sense for you to go about these certain situations in a more professional way, like overdress or be over polite.
Yeah,
I don't think that'll hurt you ever.
Yeah, I don't think it will. It might make you seem a little bit crazy at first, because I definitely seem a little crazy.
You can back off the next time.
Yeah, of course. I think that's always the way to go. I think I've never been in a situation where I acted too professional. You know what I mean? I've been in situations where, like, you know, I've been too professional and, you know, they kind of see me being weird. But then, you know, once I take this professional face off, it's a loose cannon. You know what I mean? And, like, that's what I kind of like now, where it's like I'm in the position where it's like, okay, I get to be whoever I want to be, but I have my shit now to back it up. You know what I mean? I put in the work.
Totally.
You can't, like, even before I come into a podcast, you know what I mean? There's never a point where I'm just like, you know, not pre-prepping, not doing my research, not like setting up all this stuff or like taking it mad lean. Like it's to the point now where like I want people to come into this area, feel comfortable, feel like they're being taken care of, and then whatever bullshit happens when we turn on the camera happens.
I feel like it's almost disrespectful if you don't do that to the person who's coming.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
If you just came in here and you're like setting it up as they get there, sometimes that's like a little, oh, this person doesn't care.
Yeah, and you know what? I've had a lot of good like reactions too when people come down here after the fact. You know what I mean? Because it's so funny. I get very used to how it is coming into Glower. You know, coming through this glass door, going down this hall, then making the corner and just walking down those stairs, not knowing what the hell is down here.
True.
That experience, I've completely become numb to it.
That's funny. I like coming down and being like, what's going on here today?
Yeah.
Who's here?
Yeah.
Who's making music? Who's doing the podcast? It's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, it's really dope. And you know, I've had people come down here and they're like, "Oh, I thought like you were just like taking this podcast like in a box, you know, like I thought this was your house. I thought this was your living room." I'm like, "Nah, bro." And then you show them the downstairs and they're like, "Oh shit, like this is
the downstairs is the secret."
Yeah,
it's cool.
The secret basement is dope. And then once we finally get to that like second live room, that's gonna be crazy.
Yeah,
that's gonna be wild.
I'm pumped to work on that.
Yeah, dude, I think this next year we definitely have to at least like clean it up and stuff and really see where it takes us.
Maybe put a staircase in.
Yeah, that would be good too, to finally actually like get down there.
If you guys are watching and you don't know what we're talking about, we have a room downstairs. We have two rooms. There's one that is a live room. We record drums, guitar, whatever you want there. Then there's a whole like room twice as big, and it's just a gigantic like cave. There's no staircase, and it drops down like 15 feet.
Yeah,
it could be the sickest space, but we need to put some work into it.
Yeah, definitely need to put some work into it. And yeah, dude. What advice would you have for artists who are just starting out, right? And how to interact with people like you, like sound engineers, working with other people? Like, what kind of could we talk about is like the culture of working with other people in a positive way that can also build relationships?
I think you can't be scared to say how you feel, but you also can't be a dick. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I think we can have like a civilized disagreement. Because a lot of the time, if you're working with somebody, you're going to want to do things that they might not think of or things that they might not agree with. And you both want the same thing at the end of the day. You want the art to be the best it can be. And sometimes when I work with people and they ask for a revision, I've in the past maybe taken it almost personally, but now I don't do that. And I kind of like do what they say, and then we both kind of look at it from a different perspective. I think if you attach your ego to any of this stuff, like, you're screwed. Yeah,
I think that's very well said. You can't think things personal in this industry, man. You really can't. Whether it comes to not being able to work on something or somebody not like I've had situations before where I have an artist, right? They're working with an engineer, and this happens a lot. And then the engineer's like, "I can't work on this. This is too much work for me to do. I'm gonna hand you off to another engineer," right? And they're just like, "Oh, what? My stuff is not good enough for like your stuff." But this is things that happen in the industry, and if you're not used to it, and you think it's a personal attack on you, you know that's a lack of on your part. That's probably a lack of education. Lack of experience.
I think it's mostly an experience thing.
Yeah.
I think like when you're younger, you're more fragile, especially with your ego. And the more you do this stuff, the more you're used to people like not seeing it the way you see it the first time you send something or the first time you write something. And now I'm kind of detached. Like if I write a song for somebody and I send it to them, if their instant reaction is not like, "Oh my God, that's the greatest song I've ever heard," like I don't lose sleep over it. I'm like, how can I change it? Or they tell me, I'm like, what exactly do you want me to work on? And how can I get this vibe that you're looking for? And if I don't do it after a certain point, I will say like, I'm not the person to work on this. Maybe you can work with somebody else.
Yeah, and it's always, I think, and that is so unappreciated, I think, in a sense, too, because you see it as an attack, or you see it as like, you know, "Oh shit, I think this artist siren's going on." I've never heard that.
Apocalypse alarm.
Apocalypse
I think it's the fire alarm.
Yeah. I think the problem is with a lot of people, like, they take that as an offense rather as like, okay, he just gave me another step towards of getting to my goal quicker. You know what I mean? Because obviously not with him, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Yeah.
It's tough sometimes too. I've had situations before where, I have people who are supposed to show up on the podcast.
Yes.
And I'm just like, and they cancel last second. And it's not just one person who's done it for me. It's been at least this year. It's at least been, I'd say it's almost 10 people.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I think,
But you've also done a lot of podcasts with a lot of people.
yes,
So
true.
I could see how you could take that as like, they don't care about my podcast.
Yeah. And it's easy to let that, it's not wrong to feel upset about it.
I understand it almost the same way as if somebody didn't like the song I wrote, I would be like, damn. Or if sometimes I work with people and I see them work with other people after me, that is kind of a blow to my ego. Like I just worked on this cool project with this band, and then the next release they don't come back to me. I could take that personally, and I have in the past. It's tough, like separating your ego from this stuff.
I think there's a healthy balance to it though, because it's weird. I think I hate bringing up Kanye, but like I feel like he's regardless of all the bullshit he's in right now, he's a good example of when sometimes you should just believe in yourself and not let what other people say bring you down. Because like there's a lot of examples when I watch this documentary that I think it's on Netflix or Hulu.
I don't think I've seen it.
It's really dope. It shows like, because you could see, you might think Kanye is crazy right now, but at least if there's one thing that has been consistent, except for the past, like I would say 6 months to a year of what he's become now, he's very consistent of who he is. Like you see the way he talks to people and like about what he thinks, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I can't believe this is from like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And like 20 years later, he treats situations the same. That's wild for me, because then I'm just like, wow, he's real. He's true to himself. Like other people, there's a story about Jamie Foxx. Him and Jamie Foxx, when they
I've heard the story.
Yeah.
Where he was at the party.
Yeah, he's at the party and everything.
I've heard that a few
right?
times.
And then he comes in and he's like, Marvin Gaye. And then he tells Jamie, he's like, don't sing it like that.
Yeah,
this
I've
is
heard
hip hop. You
that.
know what I mean? And then Jamie Foxx was super mad, and it was a #1 hit, like I think 3 months later, right? Like that's wild. But that's someone who looks at their thing and they're just like, this is my idea. I believe in it, regardless of what you think or say. Like,
And if you think about that same situation, Jamie Foxx didn't have the ego to tell Kanye, who we didn't know of, like, no, I'm going to do it the way I think. Like he listened to Kanye and tried his idea.
there has to be a balance between it.
Yes.
I mean, you could take chances, and the best thing is like, if you do make a mistake, like make it a positive mistake. You know what I mean? Take it on the chin, apologize if you need to anybody, and then just move on and keep doing your thing.
I find it harder to be less ego driven when there's a lot of people involved in a project. Like if there's like 5 or 6 people working on the same thing, I have a hard time like trying to listen to everybody's idea. I almost feel like there's too many cooks in the kitchen. It's like a good expression for that. I've experienced that with like collaborations and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely when I was in my hip hop group, there was 7 of us.
That's
6 of
that's
us?
hard to like collaboratively work on something with 7 people like fighting for their idea.
Yeah, and regardless, I think in those situations, there's always a leader. There has to be a leader or someone like really picking out the things, and like I said, balancing like each like discussion, each like when people have arguments, because we've definitely had points where we're making music, and I was like, I want that verse, and they're like, no,
Yes.
and I'm just like, well, and then some people are. It's hard to be in those situations again, and this might come back to like existentially like thinking about something where it's like, should have I changed that? Should have I not? And I think at the end of the day, you can't over obsess over one thing.
I agree.
Because if you're the odds of that one moment changing your life forever just because of that one thing,
Right.
it's very slim.
I can kind of relate to that in a different way. Like I was like regarding the obsessing thing, there was this mix I was doing for this one project, my project. It's called Dead Vectors. I do it with my vocalist friend Kenny. I was obsessing over the mix of our new release that's coming out for like months and months, and at some point it occurred to me like if this doesn't sound exactly the way I want, it's not the end of the world. Like it's just one release. It's not reflective of like everything. Just like you're saying, like that one decision is not doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah.
Like it's just that one piece of work is not reflective of my whole portfolio.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, time and place
Yeah.
for that too. Maybe one day you will work on your Bohemian Rhapsody of
see.
music, right?
Yeah.
But like before that happened for Queen, people forget about all kind of like what needed to happen to lead up to that point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or how consistent they were being to the point where like that song was just another thing within their line of consistency, and it ended up being the thing that hit. You know?
It's hard to know when to stop working on one particular thing.
Yeah.
That's what I find.
Oh,
also,
that's like the worst thing about being an engineer, dude.
it is because I'll tweak something that doesn't matter for like too long.
Yeah.
I'm like infamous for this. I'll send like one of my clients like 4 mixes like over a span of like a month, but like this one's better than the last one. This one's better. And then they hit me up. They're like, I like the first one you sent me. Like, I'm like, damn.
That's how it be though, dude. That's literally how it be.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, and even in my thing too, where I'm like, I'm trying to get more into photography, right? And I really want to become a good person at taking portraits and just good pictures. And right now, I think I was talking about to Shane about this before. Right now, my photography skills, a good photographer might take like 1 to 3 shots, I think, of like one thing that they're trying to take a picture of, because they have the experience and everything. For me, bro, I let that shutter fly, bro. I let that shit fly, and I'm like, dude, one of these are bound to hit, bro. I'm shotgunning pictures.
You're like
bro.
filling up your hard drive with like one
dude.
photo.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I came back when I went to Alaska. I think the total amount of pictures I took were 3,000 pictures.
Oh my God.
About 3,000.
When like, let's say like an experienced photographer would take like 100. I don't know.
Maybe like I'd maybe 300 to 500 max. I don't know. It really depends like on how many things they see and then want to take a picture of. But man, like I was taking pictures of so many things, and out of those 3,000 pictures I took, dude, I think I came out with like 200, 250 maybe.
Wow.
That I liked.
Like it doesn't get better at that point. It just gets different.
Yeah. Like, and then out of those like 250, 300 that I liked, I think there ended up being like maybe like 100 that I was like, these are dope pictures. And then out of that 100, I think there were maybe like 40 where I was like, I could submit these like to somewhere and then be like, do all right. You know what I mean? At least like
That's a crazy ratio of
plays.
like taking pictures to used pictures.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to that, you know, you have to put more intention. You have to make sure you're putting intention into what you're clicking
True.
on, right?
I've kind of learned that with the work that I do, the songwriting work. Like, I think when I first started doing this stuff, I would maybe like write 10 different riffs for a song before I like picked one to do the song with. But now, like when I sit down, like the riff that I start with, that's the song. It's kind of like the intention thing. Like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to use what I'm creating and not like waste all this time. But I understand the aspect of like experimenting and maybe taking 100 pictures before you find the right shot.
Yeah, and it's weird.
There's a middle ground between all this stuff.
Yeah. And the point I was trying to make too with taking the pictures that was some of these pictures, it's the first and the second shot.
Damn.
Because I look at it and I have the idea already there. You know what I mean? And it's like that first click is with intention. And then I realize all those other stuff is me worrying about the first or second one not being what I wanted it to be.
What do you think that is? Do you think that's like almost like intrusive negative thoughts coming in after you like make a decision?
Yeah, I think that's
Overthinking.
and also not thinking I'm prepared enough for this.
Yes, it's almost like an insecurity.
Yeah.
Because if you were secure, you'd be like, that's the shot, the first one that I did.
Yeah, I think that comes with a lot of it, because at this point, the only difference I think is between photography and then audio engineering is that the only thing that gives me a little bit more anxiety of photography is like if when I move from the place, I can't go back to it. You know what I mean?
True.
It's the only thing but when you're prepared, even like in an audio engineering like situation, when you mix something, like you've been practicing this,
Right.
You've been doing this, you know, and it's the fear of like, I think just thinking it's not right. and not just letting it sit. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I've realized a lot with social media and in the work that I do. It's like sometimes you just gotta let something sit, and then if it's wrong, it's wrong, but it's okay because especially I like your workflow so much because it's what I need to do.
That's cool.
Because it's like,
I can help you out with that.
yeah, because consistency is just like, all right, let that thing go, look back at it, and then be like, okay, where did I come from that?
That's definitely how I've been.
Yeah.
It's just like, do the work, move on to the next one.
Because we decide so much. Sorry, I'm just burping like crazy.
I feel like I am too.
Yeah, I had.
Is it just this corner that makes us burp?
I had granola and yogurt before this. I'm not sure if it's the granola that's making me burp, but my stomach has been on something wild, bro. Like this past week.
I'm sorry to hold you here.
Yeah, dude. No. It's like it's not like I have to like shit or something. it's like more just like my stomach's just been weird.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
I noticed that if I eat certain things, it'll throw my whole stomach setting off. Yeah.
I'm trying to get into like this probiotic.
Yes.
Like grain, like whole grain, like the granola guy is full of like quinoa seeds,
Sounds healthy.
like oats, you know what I mean? And I had that with the probiotic yogurt. Had that together for breakfast. A cup of coffee to keep me like sharp, you know what I mean? Especially like before a podcast, I want to be sharp. So, but yeah, dude, I don't know. And then like I'm not trying to get too personal. I'm sorry for anybody listening. Jesus Christ. Yeah, dude, my stool's just like not like regular. You know what I mean? I just feel like they're a mess, and I'm just like, and it's not like it's like diarrhea. It's just in between. You know what I mean? It's just like weird. They're not uncomfortable, and I'm just like, fuck. I'm like, I gotta fix this.
Yeah,
I gotta fix this. So that's what I've been trying to do.
Nice.
I'm trying to stay away from like grease and oil and all that stuff.
I've been eating healthier. Yeah.
I was just like, how did we get into this conversation, dude?
I have no idea. We're talking about cameras a minute ago.
We were talking about how you got to just like kind of let things go and kind of look back at it. You know what I mean? Over obsessing over something is so easy to do, especially because we as artists, we're over passionate about what we do.
Right. And I think a lot of that, we associate our ego with the work that we do. And I think as I've done this more, I'm more detached with my ego, so I don't like overthink as much. I'm like, it is what it is, and if someone doesn't like it, that doesn't mean like I am not valued as a person who does this work. It's hard to get to that place. I'm still in that journey.
Yeah.
But I've gotten better with it.
Yeah, and social media doesn't make it any better.
It doesn't, because like you feel like you have to put your 100% all the time out online. And you want people to comment with approval.
Yeah. You want to feel like what you did is really dope. And I you know, it's funny. I've had so many times like that while doing this podcast. When I had that podcast with the Mobleys, the people who I met outside of the Walmart, who had the bus and everything, right? When I made the promo for that, it was a promo of me sitting on the toilet, actually. And it was because the story was that I ran out of toilet paper, and I was like, shit, we need more toilet paper for the studio. I'm gonna go to Walmart. I look back at it, I didn't make the story behind it easily consumable. I definitely went for more of comedy.
Yes.
Because I like, you see me sitting on the toilet.
Right,
and
it's
stuff.
funny.
And I look back at it and I'm like, this is a little cringy.
Because you didn't explain?
Yeah, because maybe I didn't explain, and maybe it wasn't to the level where I wanted it to be. But dude, I worked hard as shit on that, man. And it was why I think it took me like almost a full day of filming, just because it was like it was newer to me to do this stuff on camera, put it in, edit it and everything. And then when I put it out, nobody liked it. And then I was like, damn, this really sucks.
Yeah.
But although I look back at it and I'm like, even though this is a little bit cringy, like I would actually use this now for like, if I'm pitching myself to a company and I'm just like, this is the work I do.
I see.
And I'm like, yeah, is it kind of goofy and whatever, but this is also this is who I was at the moment.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long ago.
I think there's nothing wrong with doing stuff like that and then it never being used or no one ever appreciates it. I've done, I would say, more mixes as a mix engineer that people haven't heard than the ones people heard. Like thousands more. I've put in an insane amount of hours just experimenting on my computer and no one's ever heard it. Like almost what you're saying, like you put in a full day of like trying this new video thing and it like didn't get the response you want. Like so what? You spent the day like practicing something new.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way.
Hmm.
Like I think in the future you'll look back on that day and be like, I definitely learned something that day.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so far, like anytime you invest in yourself to learn, even if it fails, quote unquote, I think you just still learn so much from it.
Yes.
There's never a point where you put energy into something and it's a complete waste. It's a complete waste if you don't use it at all. If you don't use it as a lesson, if you don't use the experience,
Right.
or you forget about it completely, It's all about continuing learning to build yourself into a more, I think, personable person, someone who gets things done like in a timely manner, because like a lot of what we've talking about is just kind of like being a good, I think, artist in general. You know what I mean? Especially if you're starting out with all this stuff. Like there's a lot of things that you gain from experience, but there's a lot of things I wouldn't say you can skip, but you don't have to go through the hardships of doing the wrong way. I think there's definitely more ways to trip up the stairs than there is actually to fall and then get back up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of situations like that, because you don't have to fall all the time, but you do have to keep going, and eventually there's probably a situation where you do fall.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of unnecessary pain, I think, in between
I would say so.
that you don't have to go through.
I think the pain comes from like being self-critical to the point of like pretty much like depression. Like you feel worthless at a certain point of like this self-critical aspect of
Yeah,
of doing creative work.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I go through that a lot.
Yeah, I think you do need a self-critical voice though if you want to get better at something. So that there is like, I know we keep saying that, but there's like middle ground with all this stuff.
And I think the people around you as well. We kind of touched on that already, but having those people around you, and especially what I heard, like even just this morning, from Joe Rogan talking about on the podcast, like you have to have a good group of people around you who are going to let you know what they feel about it, and then from there you got to take it.
Yeah.
And you got to take what they say, and also take a chance on yourself.
Yes, like again, a middle ground.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you always listen to the opinions of the peers around you, like you're never gonna really have an authentic voice. But if you only have an authentic voice, you might not relate to the people around you. Like there's this magical sweet spot.
I think the best way to end that is when you do take a chance and you fall, check if the people who loved you were right, and then if you prove those loved ones wrong, after you do what you do, and if they don't have your back once it blows, maybe those weren't the right people to be around with in the first place. You know what I mean? Because those same people who you have around with you, that you trust, that you love, they just want to see you succeed.
True.
And they're just trying to keep you from falling, So if you try something that goes against the grain of what they say and you still succeed, I think they'll be there for you at the end of the day.
I think I've noticed that people want you to succeed even though they might not tell you. If they're not like always like kind of preaching that you're the greatest, like you're going to succeed so much. If they're not saying that doesn't mean they don't want you to succeed. I think most people won't go out of the way to tell you like, I want you to win, but they don't want to see you lose.
That's actually a really interesting point you bring up.
Yeah, I've noticed that because like I almost feel sometimes if they're not telling me like all these praises, that means like I'm doing something wrong. But I don't think that's the case. I think people are just kind of focused on like whatever they're doing, and they do want to see you succeed in the end.
Yeah, because life definitely gets busy like that.
Yeah.
And then this is great because you just go back to straight into overthinking sometimes.
Yes.
It's like, yo, where's this person who didn't like my post or didn't repost my story and all this stuff? And it's like, Jesus, like you can't take those personal attacks.
You can't. Like everyone's in their own little world. I feel like it's hard because like all this approval that you want, it has to, not to sound cliche, but it has to like come from within at the end of the day. Like you have to be your own person who seeks like their, I guess, own approval. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it's hard to not look for this validation outside of like the self.
There's a lot of different opinions on what I'm about to say. You could either look at it optimistically, which tends to be what people think about what I'm about to say, or you could look at it very like realistically. But I truly believe if you're consistent with your art and you keep putting it out and you're always looking for avenues to grow and branch out into different things and try new things while staying consistent in your art, you will eventually find what you're looking for, you know.
I think so.
You just have to be open to it, you know. I think especially I think even in my case, you know, I was just talking about this to Miguel the other day, and I was just like, you know, I plan to be in the Philharmonic playing euphonium first chair. Like that was my dream, you know. I don't even think the Philharmonic has euphonium, but like I was just like I wanted to do that, and I was going to be a high school teacher. I was gonna get my high school teaching degree, and then I was gonna go audition for all these bands and travel the world and be a euphonium player. That was my dream, you know. And again, I kept finding like, you know, within my art and what I love to do, kind of where it falls, and then this journey has become one thing to another to another. If you asked me 5 years ago what I'd be doing, I'd tell you I'm going to be in a recording studio recording the biggest artists in the world, not having a fucking podcast. You know, like
I think you have to be open minded about like your path and journey.
yeah,
Because a lot of things don't go the way you want, and if you just like stop doing what you're doing because of that, like it's very like one dimensional thinking.
for sure.
I think a lot of people would be more successful if they just like didn't listen to their ego driven journey and just like did stuff that comes up, like opportunities. I'm definitely guilty of this. I have like a vision that I see and I kind of won't budge. And I think I would be more successful like overall in life if I wasn't so attached to this like specific vision that I have.
I don't think it's unhealthy to have that vision though.
I don't either. I think like it kind of gives you a purpose and it narrows you down on a specific path, but maybe you're less open to things around you because of it.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, I don't think either is wrong. I don't think either is wrong. I think whatever you feel is also like bringing you happiness and driving you towards that. And as long as you're seeing steps towards that, you know what I mean? That's what should be the thing that drives you. You know, I've definitely seen, like, I think my ego died. It half died when, this is about to get deep, I'm sorry. This,
problem.
like, it half died when I graduated college. Cause like I saw, like, unfortunately for me, like the engineers I had around me were just really fucking like amazing. Like I had the one kid on Matt Philippek, you know, and he's working for freaking he just helped with the Silk Sonic record and the Taylor Swift that's going crazy. He was my lab partner. You know what I mean? But it was actually a really great thing though for that killing my ego though, because I saw him and he woke up every day wanting to do that shit. Every day. There's not a moment I saw him in school where I felt like I didn't see him on his laptop mixing, dude.
That's cool. That's inspiring.
And he would talk about, he's like, I brought a battery out into the middle of the forest, put my headphones on, and was mixing in the middle of the forest.
No excuses. That's so cool.
And I was just like, and I looked at that and it was just like, dude, if that's what leading up to being one of the best is, like, it didn't even matter. The forest thing is not even the biggest thing that I'm saying here. It's like the waking up thing and wanting to do it every day and getting into that habit and wanting to be in that habit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, seeing that killed half of my ego because I was just like, you know what? If he's my competition, and it's not a competition, but it's like, if he's going to be doing these great things and I myself don't even have that drive to do it. It doesn't need to be the way he's done it, right? But I don't even have that drive to do that. That really killed my ego. I was just like, okay, there's people about this who live for this shit.
Yes, there are. In every field there is.
Yeah. And in this case, I do not live for this shit. I need to find something that I live for.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And then the second thing that killed my ego was when my mom passed. When my mom passed away, completely killed everything because I was just like, this life is short.
Yeah.
This life is short and anything could happen, you know? So therefore, that's kind of what helps me post up things that are like cringy a little bit.
Yes, I've had a couple friends over the past few years who have passed away, and that kind of like makes you think exactly the same way you're thinking.
Yeah.
It kind of like it makes you less scared to do something that resonates with you. Like if you're scared to put out a post, you're like, in your case, your mom passed or my friend passed. Like they don't even get to do this now because they're not here. Like I'm gonna just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's often it's easy to forget, you know, and I think perspective is huge. Perspective is definitely huge because I think whenever you look back at your old work, you look at it from the perspective of now you're better, you've grown so much, and you're like, shit, like why can I remind myself when I'm having these crazy existential crises in my brain that I've come so far from what this was, and if that didn't exist, this wouldn't exist. I think that's huge. I think that's huge.
That is.
I think it would be a shame if we didn't take at least, because we're about, I'd say like a little bit more than halfway. We're probably like 75 way through the podcast. I want to talk about dead vectors.
Cool.
I want to talk about
Sweet.
the things that you're involved in right now. Take an opportunity. You have a release coming out soon.
Yes.
Take me into this journey of what you've been doing, bro.
So over the past few years, I offer a songwriting service to a lot of metal vocalists. They can hit me up and I will write music for them and produce it and mix it, and they do vocals and they can release it as their own project. So I have a lot of that going on. A lot of clients where they tell me what song to write and I write it for their project, and they do vocals and they release it. Kenny started out as like one of my clients like that. So over the years of working with Kenny, I decided to like team up with him, and he had Dead Vectors started as that project that I was writing for. And now I'm just on board with Kenny, and we're kind of using it as like a true creative outlet for like all things that we want to do, mostly metal, mostly very extreme metal. That's probably hard for most people to listen to, but we love creating it. I think we love creating it more than we even like listening to it.
Word.
Yeah.
I mean, I see you guys when you're having your sessions, man.
Yes.
It just seems like you guys are having a blast.
Dude, Kenny almost threw up from laughing last session. It's like the last song on our new album that's coming out a week from yesterday, December 6th. And it's funny because like we make crazy, probably disturbing metal. Like it's like uncomfortable to listen to. It's not soothing. It's just like super aggressive. And Kenny's a crazy vocalist. He does like extreme voices, and his personality is like the opposite of what he sounds like on metal. Like,
yeah.
He's super bubbly, super excitable, super outgoing.
He's such a sweet guy.
He's a sweet guy.
He's a sweet guy, dude.
And in our sessions, like we laugh the whole time. And I think what you're saying is yeah.
And you know,
sense.
you talk about how maybe some of the metal that you guys like are creating might be difficult for the regular person to listen to. That might be true, but I think any musician, especially in my case as well, like I listen to what you guys doing, and I've had no interest in metal, to be honest, and I think part of it comes from me like thinking about like mixing it.
Yeah,
because for me like mixing metal is hard, dude. I don't know.
It's definitely a different approach than other styles,
for sure. And I think listening, I've heard some of the stuff that you've worked on, and like I really fuck with some of the grooves in there, man.
There's a lot of grooves, a lot of interesting stuff. Like I try to do stuff that keeps my mind like engaged the whole time, like stuff that's kind of almost confusing at times. Like it's kind of like a game for me to figure out. Yeah, it's fun. So Dead Vectors has an album coming out December 6th. It's a lot of music.
How many songs is coming out on the album?
20 songs.
Jeez, 20 songs.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's like
a lot.
It's like an hour, 10 minutes or something.
That's dope. That's really sick, though.
But I don't know a lot of metal albums that are like long like that. I don't even know if it's like supposed to be listened to as an album. We were just like, let's just write music till we don't feel like it anymore this year.
And how long has it taken, like this journey for this specific project?
7 months.
7 months?
Yeah, we started in May, and we finished in November.
Wow. And how about, so tracking wise, how long was the tracking process like?
Up until November or October, I would say.
Word.
Kenny and I have a different like process than a lot of people when it comes to music creation. I usually write most of the music, like the instrumental, and then Kenny comes and does vocals. Most bands, they'll like let's say we had a project together. I would send you the song or you would write it with me, and then you'd kind of sit on it, write lyrics in your own time. We don't do that. Kenny comes over to the studio, he hears the song, and on the spot after hearing it, we write and record the vocals.
That's dope.
It's super efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's fun. Like we don't think about it too much. Like that's a way to get past the overthinking, is literally like speed. Like do it quickly.
Sometimes it's those natural things that really come out where
Yes.
it like helps you.
Like what do we feel on the spot? That's like the right feeling. And we have tried sitting on songs like last year, early in the year, or maybe the year before, we sat on this one song for like months and we just came back to the original version. And I think we realized like we work better when we work fast.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of more. A lot of the words I use when I'm talking about artists is visceral. You know what I mean? Like that visceral feeling. And then with metal, I mean like,
Especially our project.
Yeah.
Visceral is a good word.
you want to feel exactly. And you know, there's a lot of parallels there where I find with a lot of professional hip hop people in the industry. Because I mean, you hear a lot of rappers that talk about, oh, I got like 300 unreleased songs, right?
That's insane.
Right? Like it'll be something wild like that, right? And especially for artists who have passed away, you know, in the past couple of years, like their families who own their masters, they'll be like, yeah, he has like 200, 500 list like library that's untouched.
It's crazy to me.
But with that being said, a lot of those songs will be like with just what they feel in the moment, you know, and they'll just rap over it. And even if they don't have freestyle actual lyrics in there, it's funny because if they released a lot of these songs, half of them would be like, oh yeah, I do this, and then I give her a kiss, and then blah 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 blah, and they're like, yeah, I just put the rhythm behind it so I could add lyrics later if I really like the song.
Yeah, they kind of
you
do
know?
like a fake talk track, I call it. Like they'll just press record and like whatever they're feeling, they'll put on it.
Yeah. And then after that, you know, like they might come back to it and they'll be like, yeah, I was feeling this, or, you know, add stuff to it. And if they don't, they'll put it in the song bank.
I feel like Kenny and I's project is that, but we actually release the song afterwards.
Word.
Like we don't, at least at this point, like we're kind of about like the idea's there. Let's just make it a full idea and release it.
How did you and Kenny meet?
So Kenny found my page online, my songwriting page, I would say maybe 3 years ago, and he hit me up and he hired me to write for his project, which was Dead Vectors, which is him doing vocals. And he lives in Pennsylvania, so he came to I was just doing the stuff out of my parents' basement at the time in Jersey, and he came there to record. And over the process of recording, we became close. I hooked him up with this band Pathogen that was recording with me also. Like he became their vocalist. And I think in that process, like I became even closer with Kenny. And then at some point, I got my own studio space. It wasn't this space. It was my space before this. And Kenny would come there all the time. We'd record, and he's not too far away from me, maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So we just became close, and we decided to just do this project together.
So is there so going into this goal, I think it's going into this goal, going into this release, I think it's cool, the conversation we we're having before and how it plays into this. Do you have any expectations for this album release? Do you have any goals? Do you have like, what are you looking for? Are you looking at anything?
I have no goals, no expectations. I know most artists would say otherwise, but I feel like Kenny and I really do this because we like the process of creating the music. And I really don't give a shit what happens when we release it. I know it's like what most people don't say, but we have fun making the music, and I don't really care about it afterwards.
Dope.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think that's a great way to look at it. I'm not necessarily going to say the correct way, but I think it's a way that's healthy and that you can't disagree with.
I think it leads to more authentic art.
Yeah.
Like if we have fun making it and we're not making it for a reaction, and this album specifically, we like kind of unhinged. Like we did some stuff that's like stupid on this album, I would say, like laughable, but because we liked it in the moment. Yeah.
I think that's authenticity at its best.
It's fun, man. And I think we're going to do that like for all future releases.
So after, don't want to get too much into like, are you thinking about, have you thought anything about what's next after this?
For that project specifically, or just in general with my work?
Both.
We have some stuff planned out for Dead Vectors for the future. We have other releases lined up. I already have like half of another release written, so
Sick.
we're probably gonna do that sometime soon. But we're always talking. Like Kenny's just as interested as I am in this project, so we're both very passionate about like the future of it.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your songwriting process and how you construct the song?
I feel like it changes per song and per project. I think a lot of what I do is all about being in a flow, and I do not allow myself to overthink. A lot of the songs I write them very quickly, or I try to, and I try to write them with one instrument. So a lot of my music is guitar-based music. Like for metal, a lot of it is the guitar is like, I guess, the melody and what the song sounds like. So I will sit there with my guitar and I will try to write the entire song with just the guitar, and then I'll go back and do all the drums, and then record bass and all that stuff. I also record the final guitar takes as I'm writing.
Word.
So what I do is it's called loop mode in Pro Tools, and I'll play a riff on loop, let's say for a measure or two, and then once that riff is like written, then I will go back and like for that first loop I will just noodle around, try to write the riff, and then I'll go back and record like the riff, and then I build the song like measure by measure, piece by piece until it's over.
Word. Word. Do you ever think about music when it comes to songwriting as like pre-chorus, chorus?
Sometimes I do. Yes, it depends on the style and the project. There are some styles that I get hired to write where I know it has to be more structured, but like the Dead Vector stuff that I like and that has no structure.
Yeah.
That's like fun riffs and just a good time.
And just like free form.
Free form.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to be, and I struggle with that, being in between, like needing to be within the lines,
Yes.
and then just having a blank canvas.
I think metal is more accepted to be free form, but I think other genres seem to be more structured, especially for like mainstream radio stuff. That's definitely more structured music.
Yeah,
Almost predictable.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I think
Which is the stuff that I don't like that much.
yeah, interesting. What if you just like stuff that is more freeform?
I like the stuff that's like, I don't know what's coming next.
I find that a lot with
exciting.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that it's weird. I actually realized the other day there's a little bit of a correlation between longer songs that are more freeform rather than songs that are very structured that need to be short.
Yes.
Because it's so structured, you know what I mean, with some of these short songs, where it's just like chorus, verse,
Yep.
you know
Bridge.
what I mean? Chorus.
Yes.
And then it's just like, all right, cool. Like I can't listen to that and be interested for more than 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
I do love songs like that. There are plenty of songs that like I love and they're very structured.
Yeah, for sure. But I think I realized like there was a song I listened to yesterday, and it's funny because I guess I'll announce this on the podcast now. I'm gonna be doing like a song review, right? And I think the name of it right now is gonna be called Biased Music Reviews, right? Where I just talk about songs that I like, and I don't give a fuck whether
That's
you
cool.
like it or not. I'm
Yes.
telling you why it's a dope song.
Nice.
And I realized like I started realizing what makes me judge a song when I go into it. And I've been starting to get into like the real nitty gritty, like not even just like the sound and like the quality and like the production, everything, but literally when I open my Spotify, sometimes I realize I judge a song before I even listen to it. I'll see a song that's like 5 minutes. I just did this the other day where I was in the car. I picked a song that somebody had suggested to me, and I saw that it was 5 minutes. I was like, 5 minutes? 5 minutes? You're gonna keep me entertained for 5 minutes? Like you're gonna keep me into this song? And I was just like, let's see how good this song like then keeps my attention and keeps me. And then like, you know, for this 1 5 minute song, I forget the name of the artist who had it, but I was like, this artist for 5 minutes kept me engaged. And I was listening to the whole thing. And it wasn't just a repetitive kind of thing where like, yeah, probably after 3 minutes I'd be done with it, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like metal for a lot of the songs, a lot of songs feel freeform and they have like different
are.
things. And even if they do repeat, like they're themes that are repeated, but they're taking into different places of context,
Yes.
different instrumentation, different vocals, you know? And I feel like that's why in a lot of senses for, you know, metal, you have long songs.
Yeah. There are some bands that have like At least 5-minute songs. One of my favorite bands is called Meshuggah. It's a metal band from Sweden. I would say their average song is 5 minutes, maybe 6. They have long songs, and they're like my favorite band because it's like the music's always interesting. You can get to a place though where you're like, there's too much fat that needs to be trimmed on some long songs. It's like you don't need this part.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
But with simple music, especially in the pop world, it's like how many variations can you do
Right.
to make it longer and really keep me engaged,
It's like that's almost formulated, I think, from almost a business perspective. A lot of pop music, because like you want to keep the listener engaged, and now that we have these phones, like our attention spans are shorter than ever. I find myself like switching through songs very often, even if it's like a minute in, I'm like, I already feeling a different vibe. I want to go to a new song. I'm sure you do the same thing.
Yeah. Funny enough, I've broken that habit a lot within the past year. Just because I'm just like, if I really don't fuck with the song, then I'm gonna change it, but I'm gonna stick to it and listen to it through. Just because I've been trying to really get into like feeling a song, I've been really trying to get into, especially when I do these music reviews, like I want to give them the full chance. And Anthony Fantano, he's the one who does like all the music reviews. He's bald, he has
Yes,
glasses.
I think so.
Yeah. He talks about these things, and he's just like, sometimes before I do a review, I have to listen to it 3 to 4 times to really get it.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty true. Because like now, like when I'm breaking down these songs, deconstructing them, I'm looking at lyrics, I'm looking at instrumentation, I'm looking at like the format of the song, like like how they've decided to loop it together. And I feel like there's a weird disconnect between producer and artist, where it's like it's hard to be free form sometimes, especially when things are trying to be repetitive.
I could see, if I was like a pop artist, how I would be pressured to write stuff that's not freeform.
Yeah,
because it goes outside of like the norm.
Yeah. I think I struggle now these days where I'm just like, I have to write a kick-ass chorus. You know what I mean? So when I write this verse, it comes back and reels them back in, rather than just thinking about having fun with it.
That's funny. Like with the metal that I write, especially for Dead Vectors, I'm like, let me throw in this chorus because it will throw people off. It's like the opposite thinking.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I love being thrown off in a song. Some of my favorite songs, Frank Ocean. I'm not sure if it's the song Nights, but there's like a whole beat switch, and beat switch is like love so much.
There's a Drake song that does that.
Yes.
Sicko mode.
Oh, that's Travis Scott.
Yes, they totally switch it up, and it reminds me of like how metal switches up like the tempo like mid song.
And believe it or not, the origin of those switch ups actually come from Jamaican music, I believe.
Oh, that's cool.
Because in Jamaican music, they have a lot of like switch ups like within their songs and their older songs. I think I watched like a Vice video or some type of Vox video on like the history of that. But like, that it keeps things interesting. And especially when you have a short song, you start breaking down some of those songs, and it's like, if that beat switch wasn't there, the song would be 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Yes.
Yep. And then the other minute and 30 seconds, it keeps me engaged, and I think that's moving with it. I think the times are moving into a little bit more of a funk genre too.
Yeah.
I feel like funk
even with the Dead Vectors, there's some funky stuff on our new stuff. I like funk. I like Bruno Mars's new album a lot.
Yeah,
that kind
of
stuff.
The whole Silk Sonic thing. Yeah. That's where I think I was supposed to be born in that era, dude. I really do. I think I was supposed to be born in that era. I love it so much. I love funk. I love disco.
I like funk too.
I like dancing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like dancing is missing a lot in our culture right now too. I like the little like, like whatever, like
I think for me there's a lot of metal that doesn't have like, I guess, funky stuff, because it's like a lot of metal's more tough guy stuff, trying to be as like aggressive as possible. But I think like for me, adding a little bit of this funk element for the new Dead Vector stuff is like, it feels fun.
Do you have a favorite song within the songs that you're going to be released?
It's called Groove Demon. It's like funk. I swear, it's pretty crazy. But I use bass as the guitar. Like I put bass in guitar amps instead of like bass. It's like interesting. Super aggressive though.
Dude, I can't wait to hear it.
But there's some like funk elements in some of this stuff.
So out of all the things that you have released up until this point, how do you feel this album is going to fit within like your repertoire?
I think people who like the Dead Vectors discography will be able to connect with it. Definitely. I think there's some stuff where like I do stuff that I haven't done yet, and that's always exciting.
Word.
Yeah.
What do you think has been the most difficult thing in this process?
I would say not overthinking, especially with the mixing, since I'm doing the writing and the mixing. That's hard for me. And sometimes I will take the work that I'm doing in Dead Vectors and I won't be able to relax with it outside of the studio. I'll like feel so pressured to complete it that like I will almost be not present with the other stuff that I'm doing outside of the studio.
Tough presence is a big thing.
That's
man.
hard for me.
Yeah,
And I also have to like balance my normal workload of writing for my other clients and do my Dead Vector stuff. Last year was really hard because Dead Vectors we released an EP every month.
Wow.
That was really hard. That was a serious grind.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like my June in Jersey shit, bro. I can't imagine.
Yes, it was like that, but for the whole year.
Damn.
I spent the first 2 weeks of every month writing an EP, and then the second 2 weeks doing all my client work. So I was nonstop on the grind the whole year.
That's wild.
And at the end, I was extremely burnt out.
So so now that that's all over, Dead Vectors is coming out with this album, right? It's the album, right?
It's an album, yeah.
How do you feel now, the balance of working on this album?
I did it more in my free time. I think last year it was like kind of a main focus, but this one was more of like, I did my client work for this week. Let me work on some Dead Vectors. It was more of like a fun free time thing.
Would you change anything about the process of how you gotten to this point?
I think I liked this process more than the last one, of like just the complete grind of it. This one felt more doable in the long run, more sustainable.
Word.
So I think the next release that I do, it'll be more like I work on it in my free time and not like fucking beat myself to death with the hours of working on it.
It's hard.
It is hard. It is hard.
Especially when you're passionate about it.
Yes, and we had no release date in mind, so whenever it was done, it was done.
I'm really excited to hear this, man.
Cool.
I'm super excited to hear this.
As a non-metal listener, I don't know how you'll receive it.
Oh, dude, fuck.
Because it's fucking extreme, but
I'm with it. I love extreme. The thing is, I love things that are just out there.
It's out there.
I love things
especially
that are
for
out
like
there.
for your music listening habits. It's out there.
I think throughout this whole journey of like even talking to different people, talking to different musicians, like the people who really just hearing the process of how this is done and everything and how it's being made now, it's I think I've been saying like the plight of the artist. I've been saying that a lot recently. We're just like, dude, like just release shit because you like it.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Especially if this project is like my own, because a lot of the work I do, it's work that I get hired to do. So they tell me exactly what they want and I make it. So it's nice to have this outlet where I just make whatever I want.
Do you have any advice for people who are trying to do what you're doing today?
Have a portfolio and put music out often. Like if you want to become a hired songwriter, you need a portfolio for people to hear of the songs you can do. And I think people trust consistency. So if you consistently put out work and people are sharing it and saying good things, people will like, you won't have to convince people to work with you. They already trust that you will provide. Yeah. Right. It's almost like the same as seeing a restaurant with nobody in it versus like a restaurant that people keep going to. Like they're going to trust that.
Aaron, I'm coming pretty close to the end of the podcast. Do you have anything else on your mind or anything else that you feel like you want to talk about? If you didn't, that's totally cool.
I don't. I think you're a great singer. Let's talk about that.
You want to talk about my singing on your podcast?
I do.
Yeah, sure. What do you want to talk about, bro?
You're just a good singer. I feel like people should know. That's why.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, dude.
Of course.
Yeah. This is so funny. I've never been not prepared for something that somebody said.
Good. People need to know about your singing.
Yeah, dude, I do sing on the side. I love singing. I was actually thinking about making a little, when I come out with my website, like on my about page, like I definitely need to let people know more about like.
I think so.
Why? It's funny. I was actually thinking about like when my guests come in, like I need to make sure like I make it easy for them to realize and research who I am, you know, and not just think I'm bullshitting them
I see.
when I'm talking to them about things. Because it's very easy to come off the wrong way when I'm talking to singers here, and I'm like, hey, maybe you should try this, you know what I mean, or maybe you should think about this, you know. And yeah, I love singing, dude. I've always loved it. I did I minored in opera when I was in
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. I minored in opera when I was in college, and I almost wanted to switch my major into singing.
Wow.
But I would have had to take 2 more years of college
Yeah, it's a lot.
if I were to do that.
It gets expensive too.
And yeah, and I man, part of me wishes I did it. Maybe if I go get my master's in something in the future, if I get my master's, it'll probably be with a focus in singing.
Cool.
But yeah, dude, I look at what Kenny does, man, and the vocal world's a crazy place.
It
man.
is, dude. He's screaming all these crazy metal ranges of vocals, like highs and low screams, and I think it'd be cool if you, in a future Dead Vector song, would sing on it.
Yeah, why not, dude? I would love
That'd be
to,
a
bro.
crazy mashup of like aggressive music and your smoky voice. Like,
I appreciate
it'd be cool.
it, dude. I always think I'm always open to like doing anything, and it's funny, Kenny, you know, seeing what he does, and especially with the metal side, like I'm not gonna lie, because I know Kenny's probably listening to this. If we're talking about that records, right? When he said, he was like, no, it doesn't hurt my throat. There's a technique. First thing that comes into my mind, especially being classically trained, is just like bullshit. First thing I thought,
Dude, he can do vocals for 8 hours straight.
that's crazy. I can't do vocals for 8 hours straight.
I don't know how he does it.
I can't do it, bro.
We've done like all day recording sessions, and he's like fine afterwards.
Wild. That's
Yeah,
absolutely
it's,
insane. But
it's
that's
true technique he has. Yeah,
true technique, and also like doing it. Like I've actually been practicing a lot more, way more than I have before. I want to get back into euphonium, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon. But like vocally, man, just practicing every day is so important. Taking care of your vocals. I really want to quit smoking. I really do. I'm starting to feel towards that tail end now, where I'm just like, this is not doing great things for my lungs.
I could see that if you're a singer.
Yeah, and I do want to find a different way to consume, but yeah, I just think smoking's not good for you. Yeah, I think this all came from you saying I'm a good singer. I don't know. I'm kind of just bullshitting now. I honestly didn't know what to say after that. I was like, I don't know.
We don't have to say anymore. That's it. I just want people to know you're a good singer.
Thanks, dude. Aaron, please let the people know where they could find you. Socials, anything. Please remind them of the release date for the album, and take it away, dude.
Cool. So on Instagram, YouTube, my page is called Iron Audio. Or you could look up my name, Aaron Chaparian, with a CH. Yeah, that's it. Hit me up whenever if you want to work with me or just want to say what's up. That Dead Vectors project that I'm talking about is coming out December 6th. And if you're one of Luis's normal listeners, you probably won't like it because it's extreme metal. And I mean, it's extreme. Like, it's kind of not listenable to the average ear. But Kenny and I don't have the average ear, I guess. So we like making it.
Dude, I'm super excited to listen to it. I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that I got and friends who would love to listen to it too.
Cool.
Guys, y'all already know the business. Ayoo Chill Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere you find podcasts, anywhere you find videos, you can find us. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Show some love down below, and definitely show some love when the album drops. Well, you said the album drops again?
December 6th. Real soon. Pretty much a week from now.
Yeah, December 6th. Y'all already know the business, guys, and it's just time for us to get the fuck out of here, man.
Cool, bro.
Let's get out.
Thank you.
Sick, dude. Oh, man, thank you for fucking saving the
Of course, dude.
Best, bro.